You walk into a room you have never entered, and somehow you already know it. The light, the corner, the exact way the air sits in your chest. You know with total certainty that this precise moment has happened before. Not something like it. This. The same room, the same breath, the same second. Or maybe it is not a room. Maybe it is a conversation that suddenly feels rehearsed. A view from a window in a city you have never visited. A stranger's sentence you are sure you have heard, word for word, before. And then, just as fast, the feeling lets go. You have just felt déjà vu. One of the strangest experiences a human mind can produce. And here is a question almost no one ever stops to ask. Did the very first humans feel it too? Déjà vu is French for already seen. The phrase was first used in science in 1876 by a French scholar named Émile Boirac, and it was carried into wider use a couple of decades later by a French psychiatrist, François-Léon Arnaud. It is the feeling that a brand new moment is somehow also an old memory. You know it is impossible. You know you have never stood in this exact spot, living this exact second. And yet a quiet part of your brain insists that you have. You cannot force it to happen. You cannot stop it when it does. It arrives on its own, lasts a few seconds, and then disappears. And almost everyone knows the feeling. By some estimates, around 2 out of 3 people have had it. People across many places and languages report it. But here is the strange part. Déjà vu is most common when you are young, and it slowly happens less as you get older. Hold on to that detail. It matters later. Because if déjà vu were just a random error, a glitch with no meaning, why would it follow a pattern like that at all? For most of history, we did not have brain science to explain this, so we reached for bigger answers. Some people called it a glimpse of a past life, proof that you had walked this earth before. Some called it a premonition, a crack in time, a sign that you were exactly where fate meant you to be. Others thought it was a forgotten prophecy or a message from a dream you could not quite recall. It is easy to see why. The feeling is so vivid, so specific, that a small glitch seems like too small an answer. But when scientists finally started studying it seriously, something humbling happened. By one count, more than 70 different explanations have been proposed over the years, and not one of them could be nailed down as the single cause. So we are going to do the honest thing. We are going to set the mystical answers aside, not because they are not beautiful, but because there is a better question hiding underneath them. Not, what is the universe telling you? But what is your brain doing in that half second? We tend to treat déjà vu as a modern feeling. Something that happens in a classroom or a car or a city you have never visited. But the feeling does not come from the city. It comes from your brain. And your brain is far, far older than any city ever built. So picture a human, tens of thousands of years ago. No streets, no buildings, no written words, no name for the thing they are about to feel. They step into a cave they have never entered. A fire flickers against the stone. And for 1 second, the shapes on the wall feel impossibly familiar. As if they had stood right here, just like this, once before. Could that actually have happened to them? To even guess at an answer, we have to look at where this feeling seems to come from. First, an honest admission. Scientists still do not fully agree on what causes déjà vu. There is no single proven explanation, only leading ideas. But those ideas keep pointing to the same small place in your head. The leading model points to a region deep in the brain, in the medial temporal lobe, the brain's memory hub. Researchers think one part of it, the rhinal cortex, which handles the feeling of familiarity, can fire off a quiet, yes, I know this signal without the hippocampus, the part that handles actual recollection, backing it up. Much of that picture comes from studying epilepsy patients, and the exact mechanism in a healthy brain is still being worked out. But here is the idea underneath it, and it is the key to this whole video. Researchers often describe memory as having two parts that we never normally notice are separate. Familiarity is just a signal. A quiet, yes, I know this. Memory is the actual recollection behind it. The who, the where, the when. Most of the time, the two fire together so smoothly, you never see the seam. You see a friend, you feel they are familiar, and you remember exactly who they are. But you have felt the two come apart before. Think of spotting a face in a crowd. You are certain you know them. The sense of familiarity is overwhelming. But the name, the place, the memory, all of it is just gone. That gap, a feeling of knowing with nothing behind it, is the closest everyday cousin of déjà vu. And here is the detail that makes déjà vu so uncanny. You do not just feel that a new moment is old. At the very same time, a second part of your mind knows clearly that it cannot be. Memory researchers like Akira O'Connor and Chris Moulin describe déjà vu exactly this way. The feeling of familiarity, arriving together with the knowledge that the familiarity is false. You are having the feeling and doubting the feeling in the same breath. That doubling, that quiet argument with yourself, is the fingerprint of déjà vu. And it is a big clue. Because it means some part of your brain is not fooled. Some part of you is checking. So one leading idea is surprisingly simple. What if that familiarity signal fired for an entire moment? A whole scene. With no real memory underneath it at all. A powerful, I have been here before, attached to nothing. Some researchers suspect a half-remembered fragment is involved. A scene from a dream, a photo, a place that is only similar, buried and out of reach. Either way, the result is the same. A feeling of remembering, with nothing there to remember. And déjà vu is not alone. It has relatives, and meeting them makes it less mysterious, not more. There is a feeling that is its exact opposite. You can be doing something completely ordinary, looking at a word you have written 1,000 times, or standing in your own kitchen, and suddenly it feels alien, wrong, brand new, as if you have never seen it before in your life. That one has a name too. Jamais vu. Never seen. Déjà vu is familiarity firing when it should not. Jamais vu is familiarity failing to fire when it should. Two sides of the same quiet system. Your sense of familiarity is not a single switch. It is a system. And like any system, it can misfire in more than one direction. Déjà vu is just the most common and the most harmless way it slips. For a long time, déjà vu was almost impossible to study for one annoying reason. You cannot schedule it. It comes and goes in seconds, on its own terms. So researchers got clever. They built virtual rooms and led people through them. Then later, they led the same people through a brand new scene that secretly shared the exact spatial layout of one they had walked before. The same shapes, in the same places, just dressed up to look completely different. People could not consciously recall the earlier room, but the resemblance registered anyway. And in that moment, the feeling of familiarity surged, producing a powerful sense of, I have been here, with no memory you can point to. Then they looked at the brain itself. When scientists recreated a déjà vu-like state inside a brain scanner, the regions that lit up were not the memory stores you might expect. They were regions toward the front of the brain, the parts tied to checking, to weighing conflict, to catching mistakes. Their reading of it, not a memory being replayed, but more like a fact being audited. For the vast majority of people, brief everyday déjà vu is harmless. It is not a warning sign, and it is not a symptom. It is just your familiarity system clearing its throat. Now we can finally return to our question. And this is where it gets interesting. This brain machinery is not a modern invention. Long before language, long before thought as we know it, survival leaned on telling the familiar from the unknown. Have I been here before? Do I know this? Is this safe? The machinery that gives you déjà vu is, at its core, tied to a system that helped keep your ancestors alive. In humans, it has been part of our basic equipment for as long as we have been human. The brain regions tied to déjà vu were already in place tens of thousands of years ago, long before farming, long before writing, long before the very first city was ever imagined. This feeling needs nothing modern to exist. It only needs the brain. So no, we can never climb inside an ancient mind and ask it what it felt. That memory is gone forever. But the machinery that produces this feeling was almost certainly already there, which means our ancient ancestors were very likely capable of feeling it too. The same strange jolt, just by a different fire. So let us go back to that word, glitch. Because calling it a glitch may not even be fair. Remember what the scanner found. When déjà vu strikes, it is the checking part of the brain that lights up. And remember the feeling itself, that doubling, where part of you is already insisting that this cannot be real. Put those together and a different picture appears. Maybe déjà vu is not your memory failing. Maybe it is your brain noticing that a familiarity signal does not add up and quietly flagging it. A tiny internal alarm that whispers, wait, that cannot be right. And now, remember that detail from earlier. Déjà vu fades as we age. One leading idea is that a younger brain checks its own memories more aggressively, and so it catches more of these false alarms. As that checking softens with age, the alarm goes off less often. Not because the mistakes stop, but because the auditor gets quieter. If that is true, then déjà vu is not a sign that your mind is broken. It might be a sign that your brain's fact-checking is working well. A memory system, caught in the act of checking itself. We will probably never know exactly what an ancient human felt. They left no diaries, no word for this, no way to tell us. But they carried the same ancient structures that you are using to watch this right now. So somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, it is very likely that a person stopped for a single second, feeling that the moment they were living had somehow already happened, with no way to explain it, and no one to tell. They had no word for it, no science to reassure them. Maybe they thought it was a spirit, or a sign, or a memory from a life they could not place. And then, exactly like you, they shook it off and kept walking. So the feeling is yours. But it was almost certainly never only yours. It may be one of the oldest strange feelings a human mind can hold. A quiet echo carried across thousands of years, waiting for the next time you step into a room you have never entered and feel, for no reason at all, that you have been here before.